Development of arts in cultural anthropology. When we say arts, it is something that expresses ideas, emotions, and thoughts. It is about sharing how we experience the world, how we represent different cultures in their own unique way. Arts helps us to develop the ability to interpret the world around us. Anthropology of arts. In anthropology, we are studying how human societies and their culture develop. And as I have mentioned earlier, arts is one big factor how we represent our culture to the world. Anthropology of arts studies and analyzes the wide range of material objects produced by people around the world. It will help us understand how these arts or objects played a big role in people's beliefs and how it shaped our society. Arts before were more than just a decoration in people's home or just something that aims to please the eyes. Sure, some arts are now famous for being so beautiful, magnificent, breathtaking, but those arts aren't just meant to amaze everyone. Some cultures have sculptures, paintings, pots, weaponry, traditions, activities, even the body itself that will show how rich their culture was. Arts is something that is part of their daily lives rather than just a piece of ornament. Weapons were used for protecting their lands, or in ancient times, weapons were important because of what seemed an unending battles. By the way, that carved sword, like a question mark, is called a kupesh, perhaps the most iconic and feared Egyptian weapon of the New Kingdom. Wall paintings, for me, is the most important because it depicted many activities ancient Egyptians performed in their daily lives. It helps people in our times to understand Egyptian culture. It also shows the journey of the deceased into the afterworld. It also shows their gods and protective deities that would accompany the deceased in their eternal journey. That Egyptian culture is called the Nefertiti's bust. Nefertiti was queen of Egypt and was a very powerful woman who ruled alongside her husband until his death. And then there's the pottery. That pots are called canopic jars. And of course, the ever famous Egyptian mummies, which shows us how Egyptians bury their deceased, and this ritual has become a huge part of their culture. Cultural arts. When an object, ritual, activity, or custom which makes up our culture has been modified by art. It includes woven patterns in fabrics, the cuisine we cook, the clothing we wear, even music, dance, poetry, and festivals. Arts that just in one look, you'll know exactly which and where this culture came from. It represents and reflects our customs, traditions, and values as a society. Beliefs that are uniquely theirs. Take this Mexican piñata as an example. For us Filipinos, it is something we only see in festivals or parties as a decoration or even a parlor game. But its origins are very symbolic. The piñata's bright colors were designed as a symbol of temptation, with the stick representing the will to overcome sin. The blindfold symbolizes faith, while the candies and other goodies inside the piñata are added symbols of the riches of heaven tumbling down on the heads of those who defeated the evil. I know, right? A simple fun party game for us is very symbolic for Mexicans. Colorful, iconic Mexican sculptures like the alebrijes, meaning imaginary or fantasy. It is a carving depicting mostly of animals, painted with intense colors and intricate patterns. And who doesn't know the mariachi band? Even the dressing up as skeletons in their Mexican version of Halloween, Dia de Muertos. I know if it's just me, I don't know if it's just me, but every time I see it, Mexican culture what comes to my mind first. I have here additional examples of how art became a characteristic of some various cultures. We We know that Egyptian culture has a rich history and culture dating back thousands of years. Most of their artworks was something about their gods or religion. Their art was very symbolic, even pots are uniquely designed for other purposes. For example, these canopic jars. Jars for us Filipinos are just container mainly for water or foods or even something you put your plants to. But in ancient Egypt, specifically these canopic jars, were created to contain all of the deceased person's internal organs. In Egyptian culture, they believed in afterlife. In their belief, the body needed to be preserved so that the person could return. That is why they created mummies. The process required that not only the outside of the person's body be mummified, but also the internal organs. It is somewhat a preparation for the afterlife. The oak jars were designed to honor the four sons of Horus. Duamatef with the head of the jackal which contains the stomach. Imseti with the human head, lid, which contains the liver. Hapi with the head of a baboon which contains the lungs. And Kebsenov with the falcon's head lid which contains the intestines. Next is the Abu Simbel Temple. It was originally built by the Pharaoh Ramesses II as a monument to himself and Queen Nefertari. It contains Ramesses II's military victories, his personal life, alongside portrayals of ancient Egyptian gods. Imagine how this art provided a glimpse in Ramesses II's life, and what was Egypt like in his time. And the most talked about discovery of ancient Egypt, King Tutankhamun's tomb, which 5,000 treasures were found inside his tomb. Look all those golds. I can even imagine how rich ancient Egypt before. King Tutankhamun's mummy was contained in three nested coffins, and the final coffin was made of solid gold. In his face was placed an exquisite golden mask. To the ancient Egyptians, it was part of their culture to put foods, clothes, and everything to their dearly departed might need in their long journey to the afterlife. Another culture that shows how arts contributed to their society is the Mexican culture. Just by seeing their colorful dresses, their vibrant festivals, you can already see the artistry and creativity of that culture. Like mariachi band. When you see a group of musicians holding big guitars, wearing white shirts, short jacket, adorned trousers, and the famous sombrero or the big hat they're wearing, Mexican band is what will come to your mind instantly. They are called the mariachi band. They perform traditional music called mariachi and often covers topics such as love, betrayal, death, heroes, and even animals. If this isn't art for you, I don't know what else. My favorite painter, Frida Kahlo. This is an example of one of her works, self-portrait with thorn necklace and hummingbird. Frida Kahlo was considered one of Mexico's greatest artists who began painting mostly self-portraits after she severely injured in a bus accident. Kahlo's arts were deeply influenced by indigenous Mexican culture, which is apparent in her use of bright colors and dramatic symbolism. There is a film called Frida where it showed well Frida's life as an artist and her artworks. And even from watching the film, you can already see how beautiful Mexican culture is. That's where I appreciate Mexican culture actually. And lastly, the ofrenda. During Dia de Muertos or Day of the Dead, families gather together to remember and honor their deceased loved ones. It's a Mexican tradition that meant to guide the spirits in the afterlife. Ofrendas are altars designed to remember departed loved ones. They often include photos, possessions of the deceased, candles, marigolds, calavera or skulls, water, and toys for Los Angelitos or little angels. If you notice, it is somewhat similar to our All Saints Day. Although it is kinda alike, it is still unique because of some Mexican touch. Arts in culture and society. Arts gives us opportunity to experience, to feel how it felt to exist in a particular place in a particular time. Even just by looking at artifacts in a museum, it gives you a glimpse on one society's culture. Even just by watching uploaded videos or movies from other countries, arts reflects and represents our culture and society. It is a perfect crossover between cultures. Art reflects cultural values, beliefs, and identity and helps to preserve many different communities that make up a world. Throughout history, arts continued to develop because there is something in the human side which craves change as well as continuity. So arts are being modified and retained as time passes. Prehistoric arts. It was created around 30,000 BCE to 400 AD. The artworks of this time is as varied as the cultures created it. What ties them is their purpose. This art was created to tell stories. Mostly pictorial imagery were carved on rocks and caves. Example is the cave of Altamira in Spain. It depicts about the daily life in the Paleolithic period. Next is the medieval to early Renaissance arts. Between 400 between 400 and 1400 AD. It has dark imagery, biblical subjects, Gothic architecture. For example, the Palatine Chapel in Germany. It is an early medieval chapel and remaining component of Charlemagne's Palace of Aachen in what now is Germany. Renaissance to early modern arts. This period covers the years 1400 through 1880. Its natural elements, realism, and attention to detail made it so famous. Some of the notable artists of this period were Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael. One of the famous artworks of Michelangelo is the Pieta. It is a Renaissance sculpture which represents Mary sorrowfully contemplating the dead body of her son which she holds on her lap. Next is the modern arts. It ran from 1880 to 1970. It is where artists broke free from old forms and techniques. It is the time of creation of new artistic forms, innovation, and experimentation with shapes, colors, and lines. Some most famous modern artists includes Pablo Picasso, Claude Monet, and Vincent van Gogh, who painted Starry Night in 1889 during his stay at the asylum. And lastly, the contemporary arts, which started in 1970s and continues to the present day. It explores digital arts, street arts, and feminist arts like this piece by French artist Sophie Calle, Panies with the Vous, or Take Care of Yourself. In 2007, Sophie Calle's boyfriend ended up their relationship via email. It ended with the words "take care of yourself." Sometime later, the artist distributed this email to 107 women and asked them to interpret these words. The different responses are brought together in this extraordinary exploration of relationships and vulnerability. Arts reflects our ever changing culture and has the ability to alter society's values. Art brings meaning into people's lives and helps preserve the world's culture and societies. It is a manifestation of society and reflection of people's intricate identities.